Hi, back for another video. In my previous video, I talked about actual plea deals, like plea arrangements. What are they? How are they crafted? This is not some that part probably is something that's a little bit more of like an insider thing. That lawyers are doing, and they're presenting you as the client what options you have. If you decide to go with a plea deal, what happens is that the first thing a judge wants to do is to get you into a courtroom and actually ask you about, I'm going to say, 40 questions. And I was prepared by my lawyer that it was going to be a lot of questions. And it was pretty accurate. That there's going to be about like 40 questions. The judge will ask you. Um, Judge will ask you basically starting off. Do you understand that you have a right to trial? Yes. Do you understand that you've been provided a plea bargain based on conversations with your lawyers and the U.S. Attorney General? Yes. So what's going to happen? He's going to ask you a lot of questions, and you're going to say yes, 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 some no's, but a lot of yes and no's. And then maybe by the 20th question, no matter which judge it is, they're going to switch it up on you, and they're going to actually say something like, they're rather than asking a yes or no question, they're going to ask you a question in which you're going to have to say something to demonstrate that you understand what's going on in this particular proceeding. So I remember from my own experience, he asked, I can't even remember how he asked it, but I answered it in a very, I guess, a stupid way. Like the way that every defendant will answer it. And then he was kind of like, no, you don't understand what I'm saying. Because it was done virtually during COVID, my lawyer asked for us to break out into a separate room online, and then she explained, this is what he's asking you, and I was like, okay, so how do I answer? And like, oh well, normally if you understand this, you want to say this. All right. So we brought back into the room, and I said the response that should have been said for that question. And then the judge made sure, he said, well, the reason why I'm asking these questions because I really want to make sure that you understand what you're doing. So for the most part, it wasn't like it wasn't designed to trick you up. I think for the most part, what they want you to do is that I think the most important part is like, do you understand English? That you are going through this legal proceeding in English, and we're talking about these things. If you don't understand the words, the vocabulary, the actual things we're going over, then you're not actually competent enough to go through this process. The other thing they'll ask you very, it's a very kind of backhanded way. Are you on drugs? Are you taking any medications that would affect your judgment right now? Are you high, for example? Like they'll ask you those questions. So they try to knock down as many things that would essentially disqualify you from accepting this plea. And if you're prepped by your lawyer, you should be pretty good on this. Wouldn't be too difficult. And by the end of this kind of essentially an interrogation by the judge, the judge is gonna say, okay, the defendant appears to be aware of what this process is, and then he'll say, I accept this plea, that was presented. And if you remember from my previous video, I talked about the difference between a C plea and a B plea. I'm going to put a card up just so you can see it, and you can check out that video if you forgot what the difference is. If you have a B or C plea, they will kind of explain at this session what that means. So, what is the role of the judge uh, in the next hearing, which is the sentencing hearing? Okay, so the judge will then say, if you did a C plea, I'm going to pick a number within that range, as a part of my decision in that sentencing, and So there's a little bit more work or mystery for you as a defendant to try and figure out what's going to happen in the sentencing versus in the B plea. It may just be that he'll accept it, the number that you guys agreed upon, or flat out reject it. I've been told by lawyers that in most cases, judges tend to go with either pleas mainly because they know that lawyers work hard to come up with those things before they head into a hearing. So the likelihood for a judge to flat out reject either types of plea is because they have a personal like issue with what the deal is. Um, so as you're trying to wrap up the plea hearing, the there is one kind of legal thing you have to understand. When you are doing a plea hearing, right? You are essentially accepting the facts of the case as presented by the prosecutor. They get to say whatever they want to say are the facts of the case, what criminal acts you've performed, what evidence they claim are relevant to your case, who are the people involved in your case, whether there are actual victims, law enforcement. They can say a whole bunch of things that you can then would say, no, that's not true. That person, I don't know who that person is. Or they said they found a gun. I don't have a gun, right? All of that does not matter when you decide to accept a plea, because that has nothing to do with the nature of you accepting a plea. So they'll say any crazy shit they want. Like, for example, this is a very common one that I never noticed that this was a thing until I went through this myself. But you know how in a lot of news stories they'll say that the defendant confessed to law enforcement about whatever they were doing. A confession is a very specific thing in law. Is that it's like a written statement that's obtained without force, without duress, right? It's a very specific thing, right? That when you say they confessed, right? So because people take deals, they can say that, oh, even if they talked to law enforcement, they confessed. So it's really awful because it makes it sound like you were probably the dumbest criminal ever. You confessed in front of the police when you probably didn't have to, but that's how the prosecutors will portray it. So because I'm bringing this up because the judge will remind you that if you decide to accept a plea, you're accepting those facts, and that your ability to appeal based on those facts probably would not work, because you're agreeing to these facts that are being presented, and that unless you can find another reason why you think there was some type of legal error that caused your case to be eligible for an appeal, anything that has been accepted as fact as part of this deal will remain kind of the facts. So be careful about this. I'll talk in a future video about what are some recourses you have when that prosecutors just out and out lie to judges to make you sound as horrible as possible for sentencing. But that'll be in a future video. So hope you like this. This is a very complicated part of the end process, and I want to make sure that folks do understand it. So if you have any questions, please leave questions in the comments around today's topic about what happens in a plea hearing. You can check out my previous video about how plea arrangements are created, and if you have any questions about that, please leave the comments in that video. And in my next video, we're going to get to sentencing, and I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of steps that happens before you actually get to the hearing, but what are some essential things that you can do as a defendant getting to the end of the process. Okay, so thanks for watching my video, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.